There it is. And welcome everybody to another edition of Quarantine Kitchen Happy Hour. I've got the happy cup over here, and we're going to enjoy a little bit of Chardonnay today. It's not my favorite, but I'm going to suffer my way through it. We're going to kick back and we're going to talk about, hey, a couple people showing up there. Good to see ya. We're going to talk about caramelization, making things dark and brown and mysterious in the pot, in the kitchen, and that's kind of what I talk about. We did a short rib class where we talked about this, and so you're going to see a little more of that today. I'm going to talk about flavor profiles. This will be kind of a short one because French onion soup is a kind of a simple, straightforward one. So that's what we're going to get into. Let me just turn this down a little bit, and I'll say hello, and we'll get this party started. Nice. So again, thanks for coming, everybody. If you couldn't hear that, we are getting ready to roll out with some French onion soup here. It's just a couple of ingredients in the pot. When you think about it, French onion soup, that's like French soul food. This is very much like peasant food, but we look at it now as one of those soups that is served in like a fine dining restaurant or a steakhouse or so a place where they're going to lay down some money. In other words, the royalty is looking at this peasant food as a world-class dish, okay? And that's what we're going to kind of see today. We're going to look at how we can just take a couple of onions and make a world-class dish out of it, okay? Let me kind of show you what I have here. Before we do that, let me just give a few more people a shout out. Good to see you again, Roberta. Mercedes is here. Mason, Maureen, good to see you. Kathy, good to see you. Brittany, all of my fellow quarantiners and quarantinettes, thank you so much for coming down and joining me here for another Quarantine Kitchen Happy Hour. Let me show you what I got on the board here, and we'll get cooking and we'll talk and we'll have a little sip of white wine here, because I got to tell you, one of my favorite things is to hang out in the kitchen with a little bit of white wine and roll through some dinner, okay? And so that's what we're gonna do. So let me kind of show you what I got here. We're starting out with a little bit of butter right here, and I've got onions. We're going to be starting out in butter, and butter's going to help us get some browning. We've got a little bit of garlic here. We're going to work that in there. Butter, garlic, classic French staples right there. I've got more onions over here. I've got thyme. I've got black pepper, salt, and I scored a bottle of sherry. I don't know if you can see that very well back there, but I happen to have a little bit of sherry in my cupboard. I was just like, yeah, score. I can show them French onion soup. This is great for Quarantine Kitchen. You may have a little something like this laying around, but any kind of a sweeter white wine would kind of work for you in this application, okay? Let me go back to it, okay? I've got a pretty decent broth that I kind of made from, saving up straps throughout a week or two of working around Quarantine Kitchen here. And I threw it on the pot and simmered it for about an hour and a half and maybe 2 hours. And I had a nice little strong broth there. It's got a pretty good flavor, and it's going to give me a good base. I also, you might recognize this, I have some of that sauce left over from the short ribs we made a while back. I saved that, I froze a little bit of that, and I'm going to work some of that in to give me an extra richness into my broth here. It's going to be dynamite. And then also I've got a bunch of herbs that I'm going to work into it, okay? I've got a few herbs growing out in my garden, just some thyme, some rosemary, but nothing really fancy going on out there. I don't feel like I have a ton of stuff here that some of you guys might not have around. And like I said, if you don't have like sherry or something like that, of course, something along the lines of a sweeter white wine will work for you to get through this recipe. Otherwise, it's all technique. That's one of the reasons I love teaching this particular soup, because it's all based on technique. You could cut up a bunch of onions and throw them in water and just turn on the fire and it's not going to taste like much. But we work a little bit, I was kind of talking about this earlier, we work a little bit of love into this, and we're going to make, like I was saying earlier, a world-class dish out of this, okay? Good to see you, Art. Thanks for showing up. Old student of mine, Mike Nelson. Katie, good to see you as well. People, thanks again for showing up. I'm very, very fired up. I should kind of maybe talk about a couple of, now that I've gone through the ingredients, I want to talk about, people have been asking questions and things like that, so I wanted to address that. people were asking me kind of what I'm going to be cooking with, so I'm trying to throw a little bit of that information out there without laying out too much of a recipe for you guys, because I want to talk about technique. But let's see, several people have been asking about something I got in the back here. Let me just pull it out. This thing right here. It's just a squash, people. No reason to get excited about it. It's a kabocha squash, and I'm going to be another really excellent thing to have in your quarantine kitchen. I'm not sure what a bong is, but that's not what this is. Okay, I'm just going to be cooking this. I'm not going to be doing anything unspeakable to this thing. Okay, so just a kabocha squash, since so many people were wondering. Okay, so let's kind of talk about soup a little bit and how this French onion soup falls into things. When I'm teaching culinary school, I usually talk about broad methods of soup making. For instance, all of my clear soups, like chicken noodle, it's clear, but it's got stuff floating around in it, right? Beef barley soup, chicken and rice, chicken and stars, chicken and little wagon wheels, chicken with, blue clovers or green stars. Any of those clear soups, with stuff in them, they're all kind of one method, and it doesn't really matter, what ingredients you have. You use that same method, and you can create any one of those, like chicken noodle or beef barley, like I said, right? So that's one of the things we'll teach, and that's one class. We also have another class where we talk about thickened soups, and we'll talk about cream soups, and we'll talk about puree soups, right? Cream soups are basically based on a French velouté sauce, whereas puree soups are based on like a thick ingredient like beans or carrots or potatoes that you cook into basically baby food, and then you puree that and adjust it with stock, and that gives you a puree soup. So those two kinds of thickened soups that we talk about, okay? And then after the two thickened soups and that clear soup, there's another classification of soups that we just kind of call other, basically, and it's soups that don't really fall easily into those other categories, and French onion soup is one of those soups, okay? French onion I was kind of saying it earlier, it's basically a little bit of broth, a little bit of onion, a couple of herbs and spices, and a little bit of love. You got to bring some technique to this dish, and it is just absolutely dynamite, and that's kind of what we're going to show you guys today. If you want to kind of go into outer space and look down at this conversation is really about, caramelizing onions and bringing color to the pan and controlling the color in your pot. That's a big thing that we're going to be kind of talking about, one of the deeper issues as we kind of move through this. You're going to see me develop color. I want to step away and develop color. You guys have heard me talk about that, but then you're also going to see me do a little bit of deglaze and melting down some of that good gooey brown onion caramel that we're going to develop in there, and that's going to give me another shade of brown, right? And then I kind of stand back and I let that evaporate, and then it starts getting a little bit darker, and then I hit it again, right? This is what the whole conversation is going to be, is like creating caramel and like melting it and then letting it get darker and melting it again and really developing some flavor in there. And that's the technique, that's the love I keep talking about. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move a few things off on my board here, just a little transition time. Shout out James, good to see you. Letitia, always a pleasure. Hey, I got to drop you a note. We got a party going on this weekend, girl. I believe, right? Let's see. Nicole is out there. Franklin, good to see you, sir. Everybody out there, I'm so excited to have you here. I couldn't wait to get here. I was just chomping at the bit, just like every class I ever teach. Guys, you can see how much I love doing this, and you can see that I'm just chomping at the bit to get to it, okay? So let me move a few things around. It's on. Just a little bit of a scene change here. Dun-dun-dun. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with butter, and we can kind of talk about that. Why use butter instead of other fats? I do have a backup fat, a plan B here, which is the normal kind of bacon/duck fat that I have around here. It's kind of it's a delicious rendered animal fat that I use for purposes in my kitchen. Okay. Also, I'm going to be using butter because butter is very much a base flavor in French cuisine, and another thing that butter does for me in this preparation, this onion soup we're doing, butter browns a little bit. And we've probably had a conversation in the past where we talk about butter actually burning in your pan. I can't really saute or sear in whole butter, but I can brown with butter, and it can bring a little bit of caramelization to the process, and that's what I'm looking for. So in goes some butter. I want to point out right now that this pan is not, there's no fire under this pan. I don't want it hitting a hot pan and starting to burn right away. So I put it into a room temperature pan, and I'm going to turn on the fire now. This is where we need the band, folks. This is where we need the band. Okay, butter is slowly melting. I don't know what you can see from over there, but I'll try and kind of get in and out and kind of play the game here. The next thing I want to do is, while that's melting, I'm going to go really, really low and slow, okay? I just turned it down to like 2 out of 10, okay? I've got a little bit of garlic. I'm going to bust that out right now, show you guys how to peel it. I didn't pre-peel it. I usually do most of my ingredients right in front of you guys, okay? We're cooking together. Why pre-do some of this stuff? So for this, I'm gonna need a chef's knife or a French knife. I'm gonna get down on the board there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yes, I believe you can. And I've just got a little, I'm using a stainless steel blade today. Sometimes I pull out an old carbon steel blade, but those carbon steels are gonna react with the ingredients, these onions and things that I'm working with, and so I really kind of want to avoid them. This garlic is the kind of garlic that breaks down really, really tiny, so it's gonna take a little bit of cleaning to do. Can you guys see that separation in that garlic? Oh, I hate that. I always take off that little woody stem from my garlic. I'm going to get rid of that stuff and save that for a stock pot. Yeah, believe it or not, that's flavor. I'm keeping it. Never throw flavor away. Taking a sip, guys. I'm getting a little thirsty. Chardonnay. Ugh. All right. I'm going to hit up this garlic with the side of my blade, and I'm going to do all of them at one time. That one exploded into many little pieces. I'm going to smack those again. And that one looks like it just got so frightened it fell out of its skin. Okay, I'm gonna roll this garlic in my hands and try and get rid of some of that peel. That one fell right out. Oh, let me get that. People ask me why I get a drawl sometimes. Well, I'll tell you. I was raised at my granny's knee, and she was from Kentucky. And she had a little accent going, I'll tell you. I also lived in Texas for a time. So I think that gives me the right to a little bit of a drawl if I get angry at circumstances. But I was also spirited away by gypsies from Oklahoma, and they had a whole different kind of accent. And so sometimes you'll hear me, if I get really involved in something, you might hear a little okie come out. Just a little. Still cleaning my garlic here. True story, by the way. And there's still a few tiny little pieces of garlic. I'm gonna throw those in my stock pot. I save that kind of thing. I'm gonna get rid of all of this paper, and I have perfectly clean garlic over on the other side of my board. Let me just do a little transition again. Oh goodness. Got it. A little bit of water on my hands, by the way, keeps that garlic from sticking so much. So I just got my hands I left